Motion in closed session, we had discussed a raise for Lisa, town clerk. I'd like to make a motion. Hear a motion?
I'd like to make a motion that we provide Lisa an increase in salary retroactive to March 5th in the amount of $10,000.
Prorated.
Prorated.
Prorated. Until such time that a new town administrator begins his or her position.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. I'd like to make a motion. We came to another conclusion in the meeting about Joe, our assistant chief, that we're right now going to give him a bonus of $4,352 for the 31 months he was active chief of Sunset Beach. Weeks.
Pending on
the town attorney to see if it's legal or not, and he'll get back to us.
What I would suggest you do is make a motion to, if the town council pleases, make a motion to give Joe the bonus based upon his service for 31 weeks as chief, interim chief, subject to review by legal, which once I review it and it looks good to me, then I can notify Lisa and it can be implemented. As long as I'm good with it, I just haven't had an opportunity yet to look at it.
Okay. Second?
Second.
second.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye. Is that a no?
What's that?
We have objections out there.
Lisa, you don't have the Pledge of Allegiance. Okay. At this time, we'd like to do agenda review.
Mr. Mayor, I would like to remove from the agenda under new business, under H, new business number 2, citizen parking on the island. We have nothing new to report. So.
Okay. Any other discussion on the agenda?
No, the only, I don't have anything on the agenda, but I thought I would, I've been in contact with Representative Frank Eiler, and he hopefully will file legislation in May so that we will be allowed to use restricted beach nourishment funds for our stormwater management program.
Okay. I'd like to add something to the agenda. I'd like to add a motion to authorize staff to develop an advertisement for an RFP for consultant services to hire a town administrator.
Yeah, add that to the
Add
agenda.
that to the agenda.
Yeah.
Does council wish for me to stick around for the,
Go watch the game, Grady.
I didn't say I was watching it.
Where?
Where? I'm at your pleasure, so if you want me to leave, I will. My understanding was there's not much. Okay.
I think you go.
Thank you. Have a good night.
You too, Grady.
Good night, Grady.
Okay.
Thank you, Grady.
Thank you, Greg.
Where do you want it on the agenda?
I put that on new business. I'll put that on 5, H.
Okay.
Council discussion or anything?
I've got one
Yeah.
item,
Go ahead,
if I could.
John.
I'd just like to point out and thank Sunset Vision again for their spring cleanup of the turtle sculpture area by the gazebo and the installation of a new sign that recognizes Carmel Zetz for her work protecting turtles and organizing the turtle patrols. So it's another thank you to Sunset Vision.
Very good, John.
I also have a report, Mr. Mayor. On Wednesday of this week, I attended the Brunswick Shoreline Protection Consortium, and I'd like to give a brief review of that meeting. At that meeting, the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers gave an update on the Lockwood Folly dredging. It is complete now. That is a commercially used inlet. And when asked by one of our county commissioners about the maintenance on that inlet, the Army Corps of Engineers replied that it would require maintenance every 3 to 4 months.
3, 4 months?
Every 3 to 4 months.
Not years?
3 to 4 months, not totally complete but it will require some type of maintenance every 3 to 4 months. They are also dredging the Shallotte Inlet. Work is going on now. There are no federally approved funds for the Shallotte Inlet. The cost of that dredging is $3.8 million, and Ocean Isle Beach is picking up 35% of it, and the state of North Carolina is picking up the rest. Representative Frank Eiler was at this meeting, and he reported that mostly what they're doing at the legislative, in the legislative areas, working on our drinking water quality right now. The North Carolina Byway update by Kathleen Riley. I think that is a group that lobbies for beach renourishment funds. They met recently with Rouser in D.C. To talk about beach renourishment funds. And then the other thing that she reported is that that group has not taken a position on offshore drilling. And the next meeting of this group will be May 16th.
Okay. At this time, I'd like to call to order and pledge allegiance to the flag.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Does any members of council have any conflict of interest, appearance to conflict interest with regards to any item on the agenda? If so, please do so at this time.
None here.
None.
None.
Chief? At this time, we're going to do accommodation.
Mayor and members of the council, I appreciate you letting me take this opportunity to address you, as well as fellow staff members and members of the public who are here tonight. Introduce Assistant Chief Joe Smith, who's going to help me with these accommodations that I'm going to present this evening. If I could get Detective Gaines, Detective Cox, and Officer Colby Bean to come in, please. We are missing Officer Chris Smith tonight, who was unable to make it due to another obligation. We've got Officer Colby Bean, Detective Sandra Gaines, and Detective Jared Cox with me here. And I want to take us back to September 22nd, 2017, just after 4 a.m. Officer Colby Bean and Officer Chris Smith were working the midnight shift that night, and they get a call from our dispatch center that there was an alarm activation at Hardy's on Seaside Road. The officers responded as they would for a normal alarm activation. While en route to that alarm activation, they got additional information that this was in fact a robbery in progress call. The initial responding officers made sure that the scene was secure, checked the immediate area for the offender or offenders that may have been fleeing the area. Finding none, they immediately went inside to check on the welfare of the victims. Found out that the victims in this incident were forced into the cooler of that store while the person or persons made their getaway. The first responding officers, then Officer Colby Bean and Officer Chris Smith, made sure that they preserved the evidence that may have been left behind by the offender or the offenders there that night. So in addition to making sure their own safety was in mind, the safety of the victims, and the preservation of the evidence, that was what was most important to them at that time. As they secured the scene, they then made calls to Detective Gerganis and Detective Cox. I later got a call from them to tell me what was going on, but when the detectives responded, they began to process the scene to look for evidence that may have been left behind. They were able to collect some pieces of evidence that later proved to be very, very valuable in the investigation of this case. But in the weeks and the months that passed, the detectives spent countless numbers of hours combing through evidence, watching video surveillance, talking to people, interviewing people, and preparing evidence to be sent to the state crime lab. Fortunately, one piece of evidence that was found, a glove, turned out to have DNA in it that had a positive match from a person who was in the system. We had no idea why this person was in our area, but the detectives immediately acted upon that tip, or that piece of evidence, responded to do follow-up interviews with the suspect, and it turns out that that was the person that we were looking for. They had so much evidence that they compiled, again, due to the first initial responders, Colby Bean and Officer Chris Smith, and the follow-up by Detectives Reganis and Cox. The case was so solid, the man eventually confessed, and he was later sentenced to 20 years in prison for the crime. The hard work and dedication that these men showed that night, and they continue to show every day to the people who live in Sunset Beach, the people who work in Sunset Beach, and the people who visit Sunset Beach, is truly amazing. It's truly astonishing that we were able to successfully close that case, bring justice to the victims, and make sure that this offender, who coincidentally was out on parole for murder, is going to be put away for quite some time due to the actions of these men standing right here, and the absence of Officer Chris Smith. So tonight, each one of these officers is going to receive a letter of commendation that details the event. In addition to that, they're receiving a Sunset Beach Frame Commendation Award, and then they will also receive a commendation ribbon, which they can wear on their uniform proudly on display to let everybody know that for the job that they did. So with that, we'll just start with the person closest to me. Of course, they're not able to so, Detective Jared Cox.
Great job, guys.
All right, go home, make some more
I
babies.
photobombed the last. Thank you. Great job. We go home now?
Sure. And I neglected to mention the family that was here to support their office.
Very good.
Oh,
Very good.
yeah.
You pulled it out at the end. Guys, I'd like to make a motion to accept the March 5th minutes.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to file a motion to approve the meeting minutes dated March 5th, March 13th, and March 20th.
All in favor?
Second, I second that.
You read your little...
My water is in front of it. At this time, we'd like to have public comments. Please state your name, address. And you have 3 minutes. Any public comments? This could be your first. Okay. Ironman? Yes, it's you.
I'm going to combine the town administrator report and planning reports together. That's all right. All right. Living Shoreline, we met with Coastal Federation and the East Coast Engineering recently to go over drawings and concepts and how to move forward. Some of that's on hold until the scoping meeting that we'll be talking about later on April 9th. Once we know more from that scoping meeting, we'll have more firm dates on how to proceed, but this project will probably be lapsing into next fiscal year. So it'll be a little bit this year, a little bit early in the fall, just to help the plantings so that they don't, wilt in the summer. Flood maps, as I said before, they've been released for adoption. If you go to our website, on the front page, we have links to FRIZ and instructions on how to access the preliminary maps on there, which are the D firms, the digital firms. But we also have links to the PDF hard copies of those firms. The dates on them are preliminary dates from 2014 when the maps were originally done. But by the time August rolls around, they'll have the current, the correct dates on there for those hard copies. But people will be able to look up, and staff's always available to discuss their individual properties with anybody who has any questions on what their flood zone will be and what it is currently. Amber Strickland is no longer with us, our intern. She was a valuable help, especially over this last month. She will be missed, and we will be sending something her way towards the college on her behalf. She will be applying for a master's program at App. At least that was her last statement, so she's still interested in going into this field. So that's wonderful. With Bonnie Bray leaving us soon, we are considering options for an interim finance director to come in and fill that role and help us with our upcoming audit and general accounting operations. We're still waiting to hear back from an individual we've spoken with about their contract terms.
When will they get back to you on?
I'm hoping this week.
This week?
The goal will be to get her or whoever we choose in before Bonnie leaves, so that she's able to help bring them up to speed on our new software.
And this girl did work with us at one time?
The one we're looking at has worked here in the past, yes.
Okay.
Let's see, the planning board has been looking at parking, which will be coming to y'all in May. Y'all have already set the public hearing for those parking standards, but we're also starting work on updating our sign ordinance, the whole ordinance, for an overhaul to go content neutral. And with that, unless you've got any more questions, y'all get a weekly from me as well, so.
Chief?
Thank you. If there's any questions on the information, including the packet, I'll be more than happy to answer those at this time. Other than that, we have department qualifications, which are required on an annual basis. Those are taking place Tuesday through Thursday this week at the Sheriff's Office qualification range. And I have a notice from Officer Keith Horn, who has had 27 years in law enforcement, that he is eligible to retire and is going to be leaving us on May 1st. We have already started the process to replace Officer Horn. We have some interviews that are ongoing, and we have a couple more scheduled for tomorrow.
That's good. That's a great job.
Thank you.
Very good.
Yeah. Other than that, are you fully staffed, fully manned?
We are currently down one position. We have made, been in conversation with Hiram, made a final offer to a candidate today who comes to us from Columbus County Sheriff's Office with experience. And he's going to start as soon as he's going up to qualify tomorrow. We have to get him uniforms. That will take us up to 14, which is our full staffing level. With the retirement of Keith Horn looming, like I said, we're actively looking to replace his position, and hopefully we'll have things in the works prior to him leaving.
Good, thank you.
You're welcome.
I think you are pretty routinely now sending out incident reports when something fairly significant happens in the
Yes, sir.
community.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Those are very useful, very helpful.
Thank you.
And keep up the good work, you and your department, as
Thank you.
shown here.
They do a wonderful job.
Chief, also, you just mentioned in another meeting that you're looking into part-time help.
Yes, sir.
at the beach.
Yes, sir.
Where are you on that?
Pending budget approval.
Okay.
I haven't even begun to recruit, just in case the money's not there.
Okay.
Thank you, Chief.
And Chief,
Sir.
I'm glad to see you're again utilizing traffic checkpoints,
Yes, sir.
and those work great, I know from experience,
Thank you.
not from the wrong side. and in your report, like 14 of these cases are closed, 5 or 6 involve drugs. Keep that up, keep the good work up. We do appreciate it.
We certainly will. Thank you.
Have a good night. Be
Thank
safe. Richie? Richard?
Road checks. What road checks?
You look good today, Richard.
Thank you, sir. You have the report from last month, but I'd like to add Lieutenant Joseph Adams and firefighter Danny McCarthy attended a technical rescuer specialty training confined space at the North Carolina Battleship up in Wilmington last week. 60-hour course. They both passed, did very well at that. Some really good training there. The tower truck is back in service. It came back last week. Been repaired. Everything looks good. Staff actually did some annual maintenance on the greasing the ladder itself today. Everything, got a good report out of that. Anybody have any questions?
No. I did notice that the beach patrol has started.
Oh, yes. Forgot about Beach Patrol. We staffed this weekend. Friday was very cold. Saturday was still a little chilly, but Sunday turned out to be a very pretty day. So this weekend went well.
Any problems other than dogs off the leash?
Dogs. All weekend long dogs. But
You got till Memorial Day on that one.
we'll get there. I think this weekend was just a, hey, we're out there. Let's get the dogs on the leash. So it worked out good. Good job.
You had at least one of your people that was out there over the weekend was a very good ambassador for the town in terms of talking to people and assisting and helping them out.
Mm-hmm.
That's the type of thing that we need. Thank you.
Jimmy Bird does a great job. He's one of our best.
He is very good.
Thank you, Richard.
Dustin.
Just like to add that 12th Street beach access hopefully be finished by the end of next week, if not by the middle of next week. We should be finished with that one back open. Kobe and North Shore, I'm looking at getting started next week on that to start the paving process for it. Contractor has not confirmed a date with me yet, but they said possibly next week. The causeway repair, the rip-wrap repair is done on the east side. Now they're going to start doing the little stormwater pond that's on the right-hand side at the bottom of the bridge.
They're pumping that out today.
They're pumping it out. They're going to fill it full of sand. They're putting filtration pipes in it. They're going to redo the whole thing. So there will be intermittent lane closure for that. Nothing like it was during the rip-wrap. Nothing like that. Sunset Boulevard, the pavement out here is completed. Now all they got to do now is do the striping and put down the bike symbols.
Are they going to clean up certain areas where they have debris?
Yes. Oh yeah, they'll definitely clean that up. They won't leave that asphalt and that stuff behind.
So do you sign off of that job when it's finished, or
No, the state.
the DOT
That's
does?
the
DOT.
state stuff.
But I'll get with the state also.
So all that's left is bike lanes?
In the striping, they still got to do the striping for
Dustin,
the.
is the edging going to be raked and planted with something?
They'll
or
put
is-
some seeds down.
Okay,
They'll plant it. They'll put some seeds down on that.
okay,
Also for Crooked Gully repair, it will happen this month.
good.
If the weather's permitting and everything for it, we'll have it wrapped up by the end of this month also.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Dustin,
Yeah.
It's Dustin.
Thank you.
Dustin. You guys did a great job today with leaf and limb.
Oh.
There was a bunch in my neighborhood. And I want to say the plantings in the roundabout look great. And the Christmas trees are nice and green. Let's keep them watered.
Okay.
Thank you.
We'll do.
Stormwater?
Good evening. I did include a report, what I'm working on right now. I'm also working closely with Dustin on some other projects. If anybody has any questions where we stand right now, we're working diligently on the budget end of it.
Thank you.
Thanks. Yes, sir.
A number of things on the plan. It's sort of, when will we on the council start to see,
When we
your
get into
letters
it,
are ready to go out, when the plan and stuff like that?
you should have that at the budget session.
The budget session? Thank you.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, Rich.
Bonnie?
The budget lady.
Be up here for a little while, it looks like. First thing is financial report. Everything's as expected, A-OK. Second thing is the budget amendment to appropriate the funds for your action at the last meeting to repair Crooked Gully Drive.
Does that need another motion?
It needs a motion for the budget amendment, yes.
Could you sort of explain how the money is being shifted from point to point? You know,
On
you
this-
have anticipated revenue, this is under your budget ordinance for Crooked Gully.
Right.
You, what are we looking at? What does it mean?
It means that in order to fund this under the Powell bill, which is appropriate, money needs to be shifted from the existing fund balance for the Powell bill to revenue, to provide the revenue, and it's matched by the expenditure for infrastructure repair. So in other words, it wasn't originally budgeted. The money has to come from somewhere. We don't have new money for Powell bill, but we do have money sitting in the fund balance.
Okay, in the first line, you have the budget at 80,500 and an amendment of 25,000. That's anticipated revenue under that column?
Well, okay, that first column, budget, is the line item, fund balance appropriation, already had 80,500 taken from the fund balance.
Okay, we already did that one.
We already did that one.
Okay.
And now this will take an additional 25,000, so that then the balance of that line, fund balance appropriation, which is not the same thing as the fund balance. It's revenue coming from the fund balance.
Okay, that we're going to spend.
Right. So it'll be revenue, the total revenue coming from the fund balance. It will be, when you approve this budget amendment, will be 105.5. What happens at the beginning of the year, when you approve the budget, we only get 144,000 each year from the state in Powell bill money. If we don't spend it, it goes into the fund balance.
Right.
So we happen to have a little bit of money in the fund balance, and so that we can take money out of it in order to fund repairs that weren't originally
We
anticipated.
have 25,000 in the fund balance?
Yeah,
We did.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Do need
Would
to
I
make
give you a
motion?
budget amendment that didn't have money in it?
And then the second line there is streets infrastructure repair?
And that's right. So currently, in the Powell bill, you all have budgeted 133,000 in this line item, infrastructure repair. In order to do the Crooked Gully repairs, you need another 25. That's
Right.
the contract, or the proposal that you all approved last meeting to go forward with the work, was 25,000. So remember I said before, we get 144 in new money? So we also spend it on other things. So we spent all that 144, which is why we had to take the money out of the fund balance. And all this is doing is increasing the total of the repairs
Right.
for this year.
Okay,
Okay,
thank you.
okay.
I'd like to make a motion.
No, that's under old business, item 1, but not the other.
This,
She segued into it. We're there.
Are you
item number 1 is the budget amendment.
yes.
She went straight from.
We're
the
there. She
financial
went straight-
report to the item
Right,
number
right.
1, Crooked Gully.
I'd like to make a motion for fund balance for Crooked Gully to move $25,000 for fund balance. Motion,
Second.
any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. It worked this time.
Okay, item number 2 under old business is the audit contract approval. We've received a letter of engagement from S. Preston Douglas and Associates in keeping with the schedule that was previously laid out last year. We have a 3-year agreement with them to do the audit 3 years in a row. This is the second year, and they've presented a letter of engagement for the amount that they anticipated they would, 19,000.
Mr. Mayor, would like to file a motion to approve the second year of the 3-year audit contract with S. Preston Douglas and Associates totaling $19,000 for fiscal year 18.
Second.
Any discussion?
I have one question. Are we happy with their performance?
Very, yes.
Okay.
Yes, yes, they've performed admirably, and
They're a good outfit.
yeah, they're a real good outfit. It was the right move.
Any more discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
It's difficult, just a side note, it's very difficult. People auditing firms are getting out of the municipal auditing business, and there's a dwindling pool to choose from. And it's just, I'm real glad S. President Douglas is still in there. Okay, item 3 on old business is the revised budget workshop calendar. We are canceling the April 17th and April 18th workshops, and rescheduling the April 19th workshop to begin at 1 p.m. the following Wednesday, April 25th at 9 a.m. And we originally had scheduled April 24th, and we're keeping that on the schedule. So that would be Tuesday, April 24th at 9 a.m.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to file a motion to amend the fiscal year 19 budget workshop calendar by canceling the Tuesday, April 17th and the Wednesday, April 18th, 2018 to Thursday, April 19th at 1 p.m. and Wednesday, April 25th at 1 p.m.
Second?
9.
9 a.m.
24th at
9
9 a.m.
And the 25th
And the
also.
25th is 9 a.m.
They said 1 o'clock.
April
1 o'clock is the
19th,
19th.
April 19th is 1, and the other 2 are 9.
Or second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you, Bonnie.
No, Bonnie, you're jumping around.
Madam Clerk.
She's got to give you the budget.
We got the big one.
Awesome, thanks.
Thank you, Bonnie.
More homework? You should have been a school teacher.
Okay. This is, I'm going to just give you an overview
Please.
of the package you've received tonight, the draft budget. We will go into much greater detail in the budget work sessions, but hopefully I'll give you enough information tonight so that you can review the package in preparation for the budget workshops, because we will have a lot of ground to cover those 3 days. Your first page is the first 2 pages are revenue. And you can see, I won't go into too much detail with the revenue, but if you recall, I said I had presented a very conservative budget for revenue last year. And if you look at the difference on page 2, if you look at the difference between what we budgeted, what you all budgeted for revenue in fiscal 18 versus what is projected to be received, we're going to be bringing in about $450,000 more than was budgeted, if my projections are accurate. And there's below the lines I'm looking at is the line titled total before transfers.
That second page, Bonnie?
Page 2 of the revenue.
Okay.
And down near the bottom, but not the very bottom,
I saw that.
okay, down near the bottom, but not the very bottom, says total before transfers. And you'll see that we had budgeted 5.595 million for the fiscal 18 revenue budget, and it looks like as though we're going to receive 6.044 million. The budget for fiscal 19 takes it up a notch to be a more realistic recognition of the flow of money coming in. And then you can look at the individual line items, but we're just doing broad strokes tonight. The information below that line, total before transfers, is basically the movement of money, which we'll get into in a little bit more detail. That form I just gave you, we can look at that. At this point, it looks as though I'm projecting a total surplus of 401,815 to go back into the general fund from the flow of money and in and out. And then we have money coming from the accommodations fund, et cetera. For Fiscal 19, there's a very big number there, transfer from reserves, 618,500, and that is 100% stormwater related. So that in order to, we have, this is this can we've kicked down the road a couple of times. If you all go forward with the stormwater plan, with the funding of the stormwater plan, we will need to take 618,500, give or take.
Yeah, that's,
You know, if you go for the whole year one plan, it's going to require moving 618,500 from reserves, and those reserves could be beach erosion, depending on what happens with with the legislative, with
yeah,
the
Bonnie,
General Assembly.
question that I think it might be helpful for the council to know, and I have two things that are floating. What would be the financial impact of the fiscal year 19 budget if we either approve or disapprove the dredging of Jinks Creek? And what would be the impact, the financial impact, if legislation is passed and we have the freedom to use the restricted funds from the beach renourishment to stormwater? I would like to know how that would impact the budget.
Dredging won't affect it at all because it's already funded.
The dredging is already funded.
Right. So it doesn't affect the 19 budget at all. If you decide to end the project, money goes back to the, money goes back to the state. We would owe the state money for grant money that have been received thus far.
Yeah, that's, I think, important for us to know.
Okay. Can we do it during the work session?
Oh, no, during the budget process, not now.
Okay.
And what impact if the state did allow us to use restricted funds on the beach nourishment for stormwater?
Well, then that 618 would
go
not
away.
have, well, it wouldn't, we wouldn't require it.
Right, okay,
It wouldn't need to be moved from reserves.
right, okay,
Okay.
which is a positive.
Yeah. Now, is that moving that 618, does that, what relationship does that have to the $401,000 surplus? I mean, it just
Well,
means,
two
we
different
would put
years.
401 back into the fund, and then we take 618 out.
Exactly.
So you sort of have a delta of 217
Right.
roughly.
But yeah, and that's ongoing.
Yeah.
Every year that happens. So every year we put money back into the into the fund balance and take it out, for various things. In this case, it's a net 200,000, but one doesn't affect the other.
Yeah, okay.
Right.
It's just
Okay.
happenstance.
Yeah,
Okay, so what the bottom line for revenue is, for fiscal 19, is $7,150,900. That is the amount of the expenditures also. We have zero-based, so the revenue matches the expenditures. The whole rest of the evening is going to be dealing with expenditures. So that's just put the revenue in there so you know we've got it funded. Okay, so page 3, you have a summary of the draft fiscal 19 budget. The budget is broken down into various departments: town council, administration, finance, public buildings, etc. And it also has conceivably 4 parts. There's a personnel section, an operating budget section, capital outlay section, and debt service. At this point, we only have debt service for the fire truck, so there's only one item under that column. And that's the payment, the 2 semi-annual payments for the fire truck.
Bonnie, I have a question. Since we have so much in reserves, can we pay that off? Will that save us money interest-wise?
Well, of course.
Could you find out during the budget meetings how much that would save us?
One of the things
Well,
that when we did finance it out, excuse me for jumping in, is we looked at it, we had really low-cost money over a long period of time.
I do remember that.
And anticipating that interest rates and things will go up, and, it was cheap money. I mean, and,
Cheaper to finance than it is to pay it off.
well, you pay it off, then you don't have the liquidity to use for other issues, other things that may come up.
stormwater plan being a case in point. No. Okay, so our total budget, as I said before, we've got revenue 7,150,900. Our total expenditures under the fifth column total is same number. Now, the difference between fiscal 19 and fiscal 18 is 1.2 million, okay? And so in fiscal 18, we budgeted 5.9 million, and this budget is draft budget is budgeting 7.1 million. The difference between those two is 1.2 million. And this very last column will show you where those differences are in very broad strokes. The first group of departments, general government, ended up being less. The difference between the fiscal 18 and the fiscal 19 budget was 152,000 less than what it was in fiscal 18. I didn't say that right. In fiscal 18, we budgeted 1.4 million. Fiscal 19 is 1.3. That difference is 150,000 roughly. Public safety, it's quite a different story. Fiscal 19 proposes spending 568,000 more than was budgeted in fiscal 18. And the reason for that, in broad strokes, is we have a proposal from the police chief for 6 part-time officers and 5 vehicles. And the resulting money in broad strokes is about 360,000. And just a note about, you'll see reclassification in 2 different places, and I'll go into some explanation about that. Fire department is proposing 115,000 more than in fiscal 19, and inspections and planning, 85,000 more. Inspections and planning has a new staff member proposed, and fire has 3 firefighters who are now will be there for the whole year. That's an increase because they were only there half a year in fiscal 18. Streets has an increase of 130,000. The Crooked Gully Baroni Place resurfacing project that needs to take place is a $200,000 project, and the department needs a new chipper, which is a $50,000 proposition. The existing chipper is dying and costing a lot of money in repairs, and if you all don't go forward with contracting out leaf and limb, the chipper will need to be replaced. So the difference based on what happened last year, you had projects last year, so I'm predicting that those parts of those 2 are responsible for the increase. Stormwater has the biggest increase, that 570,000, if you go forward with a stormwater plan, that buys your equipment and the engineer. There's a bigger difference. The total difference between last year and this year and next year in stormwater is 660,000, and there's also some stormwater repairs that will need to take place in order for the whole plan to be implemented. So just in broad strokes, this 570,000 is basically the equipment and the engineering costs.
Bonnie, can I just ask you a quick question? Because I think this is more appropriate probably for the budget session, this detail. It's very clear in the documentation. Does this include the street sweeper that?
Yes. It's on.
No, that's okay.
It's all the equipment.
Yeah, no. Is it smarter to lease a street sweeper instead of outlaying $118,000?
Maybe. We have to do it when we get to the detail. If that's something you want to
Yeah, because I don't know how many
information on,
times we're going
surely.
to use this equipment, and to have $118,000 tied up when we could either outsource it or lease
Right.
it or something.
Right.
Okay.
And you'll hear
that's
from
just-
the department head about what use the street sweeper, we can get that information.
No, that's fine, yeah.
It's not in this budget,
No,
but we
no,
can
that's
get the
cool,
information,
yeah.
we'll get it.
Oh, great.
But then, and so then we'll discuss it
Yeah.
at the workshop.
I have a question. Last year, when we were sort of first talking about this and laid it out, wasn't there a number, something like $1 million for the first year?
Well,
I'm really stretching my memory too.
Well, I think the plan was over a 10-year period
Yeah,
initially.
yeah, but they still had a big first year.
yeah, hang on one second.
It was around 600,000, I
I
think.
think it was about.
It was, the first year was, oh, you know what you're thinking? The first year also had the Main Street sidewalk. These are all the things that didn't get budgeted originally when we were
Okay.
looking at the CIP. Actually, just the things related to stormwater were 685, something like that.
Okay, so we're still on track with that.
Yeah,
There's
yeah,
no big
yeah,
change.
it's, there
Okay,
were
good,
very little
good.
deviation.
Thank you.
Mhm. But Rich is right, it was the 10-year plan, but there were the things in year one that didn't get budgeted
Yeah.
in this
Right.
year
Right.
was roughly the same. And the other thing there's a difference is this budget assumes a 3%, up to a 3% merit increase for all employees, full-time.
Yeah,
So that number is there. The merit plus the FICA is 68,900.
Yeah, we have to look at that more closely.
Sure.
I've been doing some labor statistics reviews, and one of the silent things that I'm concerned about is inflation, and I don't know how soon that will be impacted, but that's something that we have to talk about.
Okay,
Don't we have to wait for Jan's salary study too?
You don't have to wait for it for the budget.
What?
we'll go into that. We
Okay.
we worked on it.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, next page is capital outlay, and you all wanted to have a prioritized list of new capital items, and Hiram has that information.
Yeah, not here. I was going to bring it up at the budget workshop.
Yeah, yeah, that's fine.
So this is just a list, not in any priority order, it's
No,
just
no,
a list of the
exactly.
items
It's
that are in the capital outlay section of
It's
the budget.
perfect.
Okay? And next page gives you a breakdown of the salaries and fringe, wages and fringe. As I said, this budget assumes a 3% merit, so you can see that about halfway down. But so that salary line that you will see on a totals page, another totals page, all salaries, including full-time, part-time, retirees, beach patrol, holiday pay, overtime, on-call, and the merit equal 2.9 million. And the fringe benefits attached to those wages are 1.1 million, and the total wages and fringe is 4 million, basically. And we'll go into the detail for all those, but this is just a summary of what that line, that there's one number that is backing up all of these things, and that's the breakdown total. Okay. The next page is the salary grade schedule. So Jan, we had to move on with the budget in order to craft the budget. This is a draft. So what we are proposing is a revised salary grade schedule, which you have in your packet. And just in very broad strokes, what we did was figure out what a living wage was, what the starting point was. And we determined that that would be $30,046. The minimum salary on this salary grade schedule is for a maintenance worker 1, and that would be grade 6. Each of these grades are 5% different from each other. Right, 5% increments. So the minimum salary that we would pay is $30,046. That person in that minimum salary has the ability, after a number of years, to go up to 45, it caps out at 45. By making this the starting point, everything else had to be shifted up. So you can spend some time with this, and Jan, you'll be, hopefully this is going to make as much sense to you as it did to us, because you've done this before. We've done it too, but in the absence of a full-blown salary study, it's kind of it's a realistic look at the contribution that various positions are making to the workflow. All the you know, the carrying out the necessities of the budget, so that it's a pecking order in one sense. It also pays attention to the distance between, for instance, we have a firefighter trainee, the same as police officer trainee, public safety, both jobs. And then 2 grades later, once they complete a year's worth of training, they go up to full-fledged firefighter and police officer. The old schedule had master police officer. We don't have that. So some things are gone. Some things are added. The old one didn't have planning director on it. So we cleaned it up, basically, and offer this to you as a starting place. And we'll, you know, obviously go into more detail. But it looks like it makes sense. And that's a good place to start.
Yeah.
Okay.
One of the things that I was thinking about, Bonnie, and we can discuss this at the budget workshop, but medical insurance seems to continue to increase. What is the premium now that the town pays for medical? Is it
Currently, it's $498 or $468 plus 50 plus dependents.
Is that
Lisa.
an increase over from last year? Is that?
It always increases.
Yeah.
Didn't it? It went up. Do you feel like addressing this?
All right, we'll figure it out
Okay.
at the budget.
But
maybe.
we
That's all
really,
right.
it's kind of a moot point, because we're in the state health plan and we have no control over anything, and
Oh,
we
I
can't
know
leave
that.
it. We can't leave it.
I know that. I'm well
Okay.
aware of that. I'm
Okay.
well aware of that.
Yeah. We got to dance with the one that brung us. Okay. So I'm not going to go into, we're almost done. But I want to explain the next 3 pages. This page, this is where we are now, the total general fund expenditures. The general fund is broken up into major departments and non-major departments. All of the non-major departments have no salaries in them. So this is the total general fund budget. The next page is just the major departments, and the page after that is just the non-major departments. So you can see, obviously, most of the work, well, all of the work takes place in the major departments because that's where the people are. But an interesting thing, we have on the page that's the total general fund. We have proposed fiscal 19. Here again is this number, 7.15 million. And the difference between that and the last year's budget is 1.2 million, which is the same number that you saw on the summary sheet. That was page 3.
Bonnie, what do you
where-
contribute that to? A big jump
all these things on this page.
on this page.
All these things. Okay, so this was page number, we had the 2 revenue pages first, and then the 3rd page is a summary of why this budget is 1.2 million more than last year's budget, or this year's budget. Okay, and that explains it in broad strokes. Our job during the workshop is to look in detail, look at the trees. This is the forest. Okay, and we're going to look at the trees. But you will see some interesting things when you look at this. This is the first time you've seen the total general fund with all the different line items. Okay, so you will see that there are a lot of things on there that are not excessive. You think 1.2 million, it sounds like a big number. It's really not. It's big chunks of things. Everything else is zipping along pretty smoothly. We had because of okay, let me actually, there's a couple of changes that are not going to be apparent on this page. We used to allocate all the utilities across all the departments. Town hall, you know, administration would have a piece of the electric bill, water bill. Right, we're not doing that anymore.
Totally cuckoo.
Right, so that's fixed. But there's there's a big number that
Yeah.
isn't in, it used to be in the major departments, it's not there anymore because it now is in public buildings in one lump, and public buildings is a non-major department because it doesn't have employees. It's all there,
No, I understand.
it's just shifted around a
Yeah,
little bit.
Yeah.
We also had a little teeny department called mosquito control, and that's now in the streets.
Right, should be.
It's no longer all by itself. It's folded into the streets department. And stormwater, we budgeted stormwater this year in environmental protection, which is a non-major account, which is not supposed to have salaried people.
Right.
So this year, this budget assumes that Rich, the stormwater department, is a standalone, one of the major departments. It's a one-person department, but it is in the major group, so that's different. So when all those things are taken into account, we have the personnel line going up 460,000, 461,000. We have operating going up 179,000. We have capital outlay going up 565,000 to get to our total 1.2 million.
Right.
So it's kind of spread. We knew we had some things in personnel, has a new administrative, part-time administrative draft, administrative assistant and fire. We have a new building inspector in inspections and planning. We have a new retiree, the Officer Horn. I'm sorry if I got his rank wrong. And who else? Who am I missing?
That's all right.
6 new part-time police officers. So we have quite a number of staff members who didn't exist last year. And we have the 3 firefighters who are now all year long. So, and then we have a merit, $68,000 merit. So that 461,000 starts to look a lot more meaningful and reasonable when you know the pieces that are different from last year.
Right.
Okay. In operations, the main difference is adding stormwater, making stormwater a full-fledged department. Because not only was stormwater budgeted in environmental protection, it also wasn't fully budgeted. We didn't have any computers, we didn't have any desks, we didn't have any other department supplies. Certifications, there's all kinds of things that you'll see in stormwater that weren't there last year.
Right.
Okay. And then capital, the biggest single addition to the capital outlay is stormwater. Okay. So to answer your question, Rich, if stormwater is funded from beach erosion, it frees up a whole lot of room.
It does.
Okay, so those 3 total pages then are the summary of the next 11 pages. And it's the 11 pages, that's where our trees.
Yeah, no, I looked
Okay.
through it. It's very
Good.
it's very
Okay.
inclusive.
Okay,
Everything.
great.
It's clear.
Thank you. And then at the very end, you've got PAL bill, sunset at sunset,
Yep.
accommodations tax, beach erosion.
Yep.
And they stand alone. They're not part of the summaries.
Right.
Okay. And just real quick, so that's kind of it for our work that we have to do. Just real quick, I want to address the second piece of paper I gave you, this green and blue paper, and just tell you, you've seen this before, actually. But I was trying to, I'm going to offer this. This will answer a whole lot of questions on Rich's worksheet that he passed out a couple of weeks ago about questions that he wanted to, remember this?
Yep.
Rich,
Yes.
remember that? Okay.
Yeah.
So this piece of paper, this green and blue paper, is going to answer a lot of your questions.
Oh, good. Thank
Okay?
you.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Okay, you're welcome. All this is well, it's two things. The blue section is where we are right now, as of March 31st. I haven't done the financials yet for March 31st, so it's an unreconciled March 31st. But it is the cash on hand, it's the revenue we've received to date per fund, and the expenditures we've made per fund. So our total cash on hand at this point, liquid, and it's all liquid, is 9.4 million in the bank. We have received so far through the end of March roughly 8.7 million, and we've spent roughly 6.5 million. Okay, that's all going to change, but that's where we are right now, because there's a number of things, there's revenue things that keep coming to us after the end of the year that we haven't received yet, but we're entitled to count as revenue, and vice versa. There's accruals, there's all kinds of things that happen at the end of the year, but right now, this is what we have.
Final one quick question. How about Matthews? Have we gotten any more money for, you think we'll get any more?
We sent a letter closing out the project, and we're in line to receive it. I think it depends on Congress.
Okay.
I mean, I don't really know. I mean,
Well,
yeah, we're entitled to almost 200,000.
I think we better plan not to receive it.
Right.
They're broke.
Right, we're not budgeting for it.
Good.
Okay. Okay, so the green part,
Lots of money.
Hmm?
They got lots of money. They just,
Yeah,
1.2
$21
billion.
trillion deficit.
Yeah. Paper.
Finally, overall, it looks great.
great. So just this green part, thank you. Just this green part, Rich, you were wondering what the balances are in the various funds. So this will tell you this projected June 30th, 2018 number. That went to the fourth column over.
I got it.
That will give you,
Yeah.
so if the projections are correct, and this is only for budget amendments that have occurred through the end of March. So the one you did tonight's not in here.
Right, exactly.
Okay.
You keep saying if the budget projections are correct. Are you talking about your math, or are you talking about just unanticipated expenses or unanticipated revenues?
Both. I mean, I'm,
Okay. The math looks good so far.
good. The math is correct. Whether the projections are correct is, but again, I'm very conservative. They just as likely to be over as under. Okay, so if my projections are correct, then we will have, on page 2, you'll see we will have 8.6 million in the various fund balances. When we were audited, we had 8.4 million, and because of activity increasing and decreasing the fund balance, we stand to be almost 200,000 to the good, and that's paying for the projects that have already been funded. And that's, I think we're done. That's it.
I see that our tax rate will stay at 16.0.
Oh. Now that you mention it, yeah, I mean, there's no reason to do anything with the tax rate. Rich, you had one of the
I
things.
might have a different opinion of that during
Oh,
the
no
budget
doubt.
process.
Where I'm the one at the dais.
Lens-
My opinion is that nothing needs to be done with the tax
Lensteiner
rate.
wants a tax decrease.
One of your questions on this was how much 1 penny, that's down at the bottom of
Yeah.
this second page. Based on the assessed value of property in town limits, as of the audit, the June 30th audit, what is that? 1,554,242,500
Right.
property values and 1 penny
Right.
of
so-
that is 155,000.
Right, so if we shave 155,000 from this operating budget, we could have a penny reduction in our tax rate.
That is correct.
That's just a summary, it's not a statement.
Yep, that is correct.
When is the next property reevaluation due to take place?
January.
January.
Next January?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And Is there a way that we incorporate into this all the new houses that are coming online in the island?
Well,
There's
this
been a
is-
lot of them in the last year.
Mhm. And this is, if you look at, I have projected that our revenue from property taxes will go up 173,000 more, well, I'm budgeted, this draft budget has property taxes 173,000 more than was budgeted in fiscal 18. So, yes.
You
And
calculated that in.
Yeah, calculated that in. And who knows what'll happen with the reval, and that will be a budget amendment at the time, plus or minus,
Right.
when the numbers are known. All we have is what we have right now, or as of the last audit.
And the reval will affect mostly FY '20. It'll do little in next year's budget.
Right.
But we'll have more, there'll be more discoveries and, yeah.
Yeah.
But it will take into the tax scroll will take into account, right now I'm working with a number that's 8 months old. And a lot has happened in the last 8 months. So, any other questions?
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Good
Very
job,
good,
Bonnie.
thank you.
Thank you.
Very good.
Thank you, Bonnie.
Mark, I think we're on item 5, but I do have a question. Is it item 5 that we're on?
Well, 5 we discussed already with Bonnie, we rescheduled the appointments,
No,
no,
five's
no, no.
rescheduling the next meeting.
No,
next meeting.
we're having a workshop on Tuesday, the 24th, is that correct? Or do I have to file a motion?
What do you,
It says here rescheduling of April 17th
17th.
meeting.
Right, that's your regular meeting that's usually
Right.
scheduled. So
And-
we're
and-
requested to move that to the 19th when the first budget workshop is.
Right.
Right, and Mark has a business meeting. So are we rescheduling the 17th meeting to the 24th?
19th.
19th, Rich.
Or the 19th?
Right.
yeah.
Does that need a motion?
And the idea is that will be
Workshop.
a workshop meeting plus a budget meeting.
Right.
Correct.
All right, all together, so.
So I'd like to make a motion.
I'd like to file a motion to reschedule the monthly workshop from April 17th at 9 a.m. to Tuesday, April 19th at 9 a.m.
At 1 PM.
1 PM.
It's one.
It's at 1 p.m.?
Yes.
We're going to have a workshop at 1 p.m. followed by a budget meeting?
Right now, yes.
Same meeting.
Same, one of the same. Gonna be a long meeting, Rich.
No, I don't mind if it's 20 hours. I just want to understand it, that's all.
I do.
Second,
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Mr. Mayor, if you don't mind, I would like to file a motion appointing myself as the temporary GSAT representative until such time a new mayor is appointed. Anybody have any objections to that? I think you're the alternate.
I'm the alternate,
Right.
yes. And I have no desire to be the primary.
No, you, you made that clear
Yeah.
the
Do I have
last
a-
time.
Do I have a motion to put Rich in that position of GSAT representative?
My question just is that in the documents that set up the GSAT and stuff that we joined into, it was identified that it would be the mayor to do that. And so, I mean, whether, the question would be,
Well,
you
I
know,
can-
we're making a deliberate decision that we don't want the mayor pro tem, you, to do it, and we have Rich do
Allow
it.
Rich
And I
to do
just want to make sure that we're clear
Is that okay?
that we're doing
Rich,
that.
to do that?
As far as I'm aware, it's fine.
Yeah.
We can
Yeah,
double
I mean,
check with
this
Mark Howell.
this isn't a law. I mean, it's
No.
Yeah.
just the guidelines when they set it up.
Yeah.
So when the new mayor does come in, we
Go right back
should
to him.
saddle him with
Yeah,
that
correct.
responsibility, yeah.
Yes. Do I have a motion? Put Rich in it.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
May I do one add-on there, please?
Yes, you can.
The next meeting is at 10:30, Friday, April 13th, at the Carolina Shores Town Hall Building. Be there,
What time?
10:30,
When?
Friday, April 13th. Ah. Yeah. There's ethics forms and financial forms, disclosure forms that you have to file. online, and Lisa can
Lisa, do you have them?
help arrange
I'll
that.
take a trip to town hall tomorrow, so.
Okay.
Oh, okay. All right, that's cool. Thank you.
Number 7, climate control measures discussion.
Yeah,
Discussion,
this is a, just an interim report. The idea was that the next workshop, we would discuss it in more detail in terms of the way ahead. But with the assistance of Amber, what I'm kind of mapping out to go through and looking in terms of the climate control issues is a combination of what we in the town can do to make a small positive impact on climate control and in the near time, and sort of a longer range look at what do we do as a coastal area that deals with the issue of sea levels rising. One of them is a issue, the near-term impact, which would be kind of tied into our recycling, is something we can do right away. The steps that we take in terms of sea level rising, we're looking at changes that are going to take place over 25, 50, 75, and 100 years. So it's not imminent. So the idea is we already have a recycling program in the near term is to put into an educational campaign, and Amber provided some information, an educational campaign with a goal, say, that we would have to agree upon, of taking the current 800 or so people who recycle in the town and trying to get a 10 or 20% increase by education and getting the people to sign up for the recycle and using that. That's less stuff that goes into the dumps, less stuff that creates gases that go up into the ozone area. And so it's a combination of it's a education and publicity problem. With looking at that longer into the future, are there considerations, how do we continue the education and motivation to keep more people signing up? Or do we eventually think about going into a mandatory program that we pay for and include as part of our taxes? And that's all to be determined. And so we need just a little bit more discussion at the next meeting. Also at the next meeting is starting to look into the longer range, and the first step on that would be asking our planning and DPW departments to start looking at potential infrastructure concerns. If we are starting to have a rising sea level over the course of 25, 50, 75 years, what kind of things can we do? And so that we then begin to come up with a long-term plan to look at it. Part of that would be identify, for example, if the sea level rises in 100 years out here, then our causeway is underwater. So we'd look at a plan that we elevate the causeway. The island itself wouldn't necessarily be underwater, but the causeway would be, for an example. We have a vacuum sealed sewage system on the island that is a very good, very appropriate system for areas that are prone to flooding. And one of the nice things about the island, the water comes up over the top of it right now, the tide changes, it goes back down, and the flood's kind of over. Whereas we saw in Matthew, our inland areas around Lumberton and stuff like that, if they got flooded, it stays flooded. But there are low levels on our mainland that we might look at where over time, do we replace the gravity-based sewage system with more of a vacuum-based system that can handle flooding? That's the type of thing that we need to be thinking about. And again, looking over time as we look at our construction codes and things, are there steps that we start to think about in the future that we keep in mind as if the water is going to rise? Do we sort of provide guidance in there for areas along the water to make their bulkheads higher? And do some type of a infrastructure change to that. I don't have the answers, and this is idea to study and looking at it, but the most important thing is for us to be aware and cognizant as a coastal community where the sea levels are projected to rise over the next 100 years, what are the types of things that we can do? And to start doing that. And the idea is to, at a soon-to-come workshop.
We're going to discuss that, John, on 19th, or?
Well, we may want to think, if we got the budget on the 19th, the timeline for recycling is the recycling program hits us around October, where we have to renew it. Is that correct? So the idea is we have a little bit of time to work out, you know, if you will, an education or a type of campaign initially. And I don't think we really need to do that next on the 19th. We can sort of wait till the first meeting of June.
Okay.
And come up with a proposal that Amber left some good materials as a basis to start that type of campaign. So I would push it off until after we have our budget locked in.
June 19th is fine?
Yeah, I would think that was okay. Yeah,
I have one question.
sure. How do I know the sea level's going to rise? No.
Under the recycling, a new house gets a CO, the people move in, can they get a recycle can, or do they have to wait till October?
Every quarter.
But the big discounted, the discounts come in October, is that correct? Part of the town, with the town, we pay into the town? Nope?
They're prorated quarterly. People can sign up for a full quarter. If somebody comes in at the end of March, they can sign up starting April 1st, they pay for the quarter, April, May, June,
Okay,
and then keep going. And then in October, they have a chance to renew.
okay, good. And that's why we need to have a workshop to discuss all this kind of stuff, so we can all be better educated.
Thank
Is there
you.
something,
That's-
Lisa, can we mandate recycling, or is that something we cannot do?
We can require it as utility, but we're not gonna make them fill up their trash cans. You know, you make them have a cart, you can make them, you know, put it on their taxes, but nothing's gonna actually make someone, unless you wanna institute some kind of sorting system to go check the trash to see if they're using it. I mean, the enforcement aspect of it's the hard catch, but you can up front make someone,
Mandated recycling?
yeah.
Yeah.
It's the same thing as just making them
Yeah.
have a trash can, you just add it
Yeah.
on to that same fee.
I mean, and if we pay for it, but then if we're going to, it's hard to mandate it and make them pay for it. Is
Yeah,
that correct?
that's right.
That becomes very difficult to
Bonnie,
do.
can you find out what that would cost the town if we did on a yearly basis, mandating?
Exactly, our contract with Waste Management is currently $53,000 a year. And we just have to add, you know, the number of people, and it's roughly, I think it's about 900 people at this point. So we triple it, it would probably cost a penny of tax.
There wants your penny, Rich.
There's your penny, Rich, gone.
Do you want some more ways to spend money? We can.
Okay.
Now, anyway, and so anyway, that's it. So we move this off into June. and
June
that-
19th.
That's fine.
Okay,
That was my update.
good job, John. Rich, number 8, fire department staffing, hiring freeze.
I'm just going to say a couple of things. Because we have the money, it doesn't mean that we have to spend it. And I still have a little gnaw in my stomach. Until this council can explain to me why Sunset Beach has more firemen than any other nearby town, that have more churches, restaurants, they have hospitals, they have schools, traffic, population. I'm having a hard time with this. Until such time, I would like to file a motion that whenever there's a fire staff vacancy for either a full or part-time position, excluding our beach patrol staff, excluding them, that all vacancies before being filled must be approved by the council. That's it.
Would you like to hear from Richard while he's here to discuss?
He's here for that reason, I think, right, Richard?
I don't mean to put Richard in hot water.
He's not in hot water.
No, sir. I would just ask that you reconsider bringing that about. That's a major fear running through some of the firemen's eyes right now, but right now with the current decrease in our scheduled overtime, Station 2 is going to be closed, you know, a few days a month.
I don't know about this decrease in overtime that you're referring to. Does anybody on the council know that?
I thought you brought it up.
Who brought it up?
I said I thought, I didn't say you did for sure.
I didn't bring it up.
Richard, who brought that up?
We just went through that last month. We cut all scheduled overtime and went to.
Who's we? You
Why?
and Kevin decided to do that?
No.
From council?
No, that was from council.
I don't recall that.
I believe it started with Susan. I believe there was some discussion about wanting to reduce all staff overtime across departments at some point last year.
Well, we got a report that the council requested to find out how much overtime the town spends. And I don't have the numbers in front of me, but there's mandated overtime when we have holidays. And if I recall, that was, in other words, when an hourly employee works a holiday, he's paid time and a half. He's paid overtime. A fire department may have a different algorithm, but total-wise, the report indicated that we were paying $200,000 a year in overtime.
127.
There it is.
Yeah, well, there's been a couple of reports with different numbers. And I don't think anybody asked anybody to reduce overtime. I'm just trying to get an answer.
Yeah.
Bonnie, do we
Yeah, I agree
ask the
that,
fire department to reduce their hours with overtime?
I don't know if you specifically asked, I don't think that you specifically, I don't know.
Okay.
yeah.
Specifically asked the fire department.
I don't recall the council taking any action that
No.
told them to reduce the hours.
Lisa,
I
can
don't
you look
either.
back in the
I
minutes?
don't either.
Put them back on.
All right, Lisa's gonna look back at the minutes. Richard, right now, this council, in my opinion, is not recommending you do that.
Well, I apologize, you know, this is coming from, last month, you know, we were instructed to do that, and we did.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's fine. I mean, but right now, that's not an issue tonight. My issue is other towns have multi-fire stations. My issue is, and I'm not saying that you're not spending this money wisely, but I'm having a hard time having 17 firemen. No, we can say we're the best, but more doesn't make it better.
No, I wouldn't,
You know,
start to say-
I could come around and say, instead of hiring more people, why don't we pay our staff, our good staff, more money? I mean, numbers mean, you know, it's like what Harry Truman said, the more money you give government, they find a way to spend it. And it's about $150,000. It's equivalent to 1 cent on our tax rate increase now. And it's not a matter to be defended, but it's an issue that I'm concerned about.
Rich,
Yeah, but
Rich, why don't we just say it this way, that Richard would come to the town council and tell us why he needs another
Well, that's
fire.
what I'm asking. That's what the motion
No,
is.
you said that we approve it. I mean, that's,
Yeah.
it's a
It's a
slight difference than
I
just
think
being
if Richard
informed.
comes to us and says, this is what I need because 2 people left, I think Richard has a right to come and protect his town and say that, you know, he comes to the council and then we approve it.
Well, that's,
Yeah,
I-
I
That's
mean,
basically what I'm saying.
I have some,
when he has a vacancy, he should come to the council and say, listen, I have a vacancy.
Well, let's not use the word freeze. Let's leave
I-
it to Richard.
Did I use the word freeze?
It's in here though. Richard.
Yes,
Where?
I mean,
It's in the agenda.
you've been using the word freeze.
It says right here, Richard, fire department staffing / hiring freeze.
Well, that's the language that was used. I'm talking about vacancies. You can call it anything you want, but this has to be justified.
Well, he'll justify it, but he'll come to us. and
Well,
tell us why he needs it.
we have gone through as a council, and in previous years, the last year, our budget, we funded 14 people on the fire department. And this year, we had, during the course of this year, we had the increased fire fees that brought in approximately $230,000 thereabouts. And we went through and augmented the fire department by 3 more people in response to the proposal and the recommendation that the fire chief and assistant fire chief had been making and standing behind for a number of years. And part of that was making sure we could adequately maintain our two fire department buildings and be able to adequately respond to fires with people on hand who could, according to the nationally accepted guidelines for people to be on hand to go into a fire, respond to that. We sort of bought into that safety standard, and we sort of have a responsibility to maintain that safety standard in terms of protecting the firemen that we have there. We don't, it's irresponsible not to keep the fire department fully manned, fully equipped, adequately paid, and able to safely provide the services that they provide to this community.
John, the only thing I want to ask you, John, when we had 14, was it adequate?
According to the presentations that were made and the explanations of the safety rules and standards for responding to a fire, we were 6 firemen short for this community. And when we got the additional funding, we chose to fund 3 of those people, and instead of the 4th person, we chose to put that money back into our general fund. So we responded and increased. We handled 50% of the request and the recommendation from our fire chief and fire department of what the manning was needed to adequately handle us. And when we start getting into these, we also run into, when we play games with closing Fire Station 2, reducing the manning level, we also get into the insurance standards and the evaluation of our fire services in terms of what it costs. I would be interested to know if we get knocked down a level or 2 by closing the station, decreasing our response times, not having adequate people to be able to go into a fire
John,
immediately.
John,
Does that,
John,
well,
real quick, no, because I don't want to
that
start something.
cost us money?
Nobody here has ever said closing Station 2. So let's not even have that in our discussion. Let's not start that fake news stuff again. We're not closing Station 2. We just told Richard we're not going to lay off people. We just agreed that we have Richard come to us and say he needs more people because people have left. Let's leave it up to the fire department. I agree with you, John, but don't start things that we did not say here. We did not say we were going to close Fire Station 2.
The discussion of closing Fire Station 2 has been on and off again as part of the discussion when we discussed the fire department.
I think Kevin made it very clear to us.
The fact that it's an issue over time does not make it fake news. The fact that you disagree with what I'm saying does not make it fake news.
It hasn't been brought up in a while, John, so let's keep it
That's
down.
not an issue. That's not what I'm discussing. I'm talking about justification.
And part of the 17
The
man
fire fee,
department-
the fire fee was increased by is equivalent to 1.5 cent increase in our tax rate. The people last year were taxed an extra penny and a half.
That we have no control over.
Yes, we do.
No, that came in from the
Yes,
from the
we do
county.
have control. No, the rate increase did, but we could have offset that increase by a tax reduction. That's all I'm saying.
I think the council
needs to be
We do not
justified.
want to close Fire Station 2. That's not a discussion. We do not want to have
Then all of a sudden-
not have people working because of overtime. You need overtime, you spend the overtime.
Correct.
Okay?
And all of a sudden, we're hearing that the overtime's been cut. We haven't even had a budget discussion.
Maybe I can just add a little bit to the overtime discussion. When those 3 people were added, the understanding was that overtime would be reduced.
Well, we didn't
It
know that.
wasn't-
That has never been discussed.
Well, that's how the positions were being filled before, by people working overtime. Because the shifts don't go away, the stations are open, the calls are certainly
I
there.
understand it, but by hiring the 3, we should not have people not attending Fire Station number 2. You got 3 extra people.
I'm just talking about the overtime.
Okay.
So when you hire 3 people and have them do regular shifts, which other people were filling with overtime, the overtime goes down.
Bonnie.
And that's, I mean,
Bonnie,
that's,
Bonnie.
Yeah, well,
Bonnie.
that's a different thing than canceling overtime.
well,
No,
exactly.
no,
Yeah,
Bonnie,
but
Bonnie,
this is-
you're missing the point, with all due respect.
I'm just talking about overtime.
No, When the request was made to hire 6 more firemen, no one discussed the reduction in overtime for an offset. It wasn't until I sent a letter to find out how much overtime was paid in this town, and it was nearly $200,000. That's when I raised the question. The former chief did not come up here and say to this council, if I have 3, if I can hire, well, the council approved 3, but if I hire 3 full-time firemen, I can save $100,000 in overtime. That was never discussed.
No, you're right.
That's all I'm
And I don't
saying.
mean to imply that I thought otherwise. What I am saying is that this overtime is directly tied to the number of people there are to fill the slots that exist, whether you have people to fill them or not. The slots still exist.
The only point that I'm trying to make is that that needs to be discussed at budget time.
Right.
Right now, I'd like to make a motion, and I don't supposed to make a motion.
You can.
I'd like to make a motion to table this right now, Richard, till budget time.
Second.
Okay? Fine.
All in favor?
Second?
Second.
Charlie?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
New business, section of dredging, scoping, meeting, council representation. Can I speak for the council? I think we've come to a consensus that if Rich or I would go, it would be unfair for John and Jan or whoever didn't go. So we're collectively going to go as a town council to the meeting, and only one of us would be able to speak. Is that correct, Lisa, to make it a? Okay.
We never heard back from Mr. Weaver.
Okay.
But we can all attend, it doesn't violate the open meeting law. Listen, this is a critical scope meeting. And we believe nothing should be filtered, we need to hear it for ourselves, so that we can report back to you.
For clarification, we have only 2 people per car? So we don't have an open meeting on the way up
There you go.
or back?
If I may, real quick.
Yes.
I'd like to point out that the scoping meeting, you know, regardless of everything else, the scoping meetings, for them to tell us we can or cannot do this, it's not really a question of should or should not. So whoever speaks or whenever speaks, we really should keep it respectful to the state agencies doing this, that it's all about the process, the procedures, the permits, and the applicability,
Right.
but the should or should not be should be discussed in this room by the council,
Right.
not with the scoping agencies.
Exactly.
And then who does speak then at the meeting?
That's for y'all to decide, but I would say our consultant, and then, you know, you can pull him aside and ask questions and have him speak for you, would be my recommendation.
I recommend that every one of us write 2 questions down, because we can't overwhelm them, and make sure we're not duplicating the questions and give it to Moffett, and let them read the questions to the scoping meeting.
When do you want those? The meeting's on the
Meeting's
9th.
on Monday, so,
This Monday coming up.
yeah, so by Thursday or Friday?
Thursday, John? Charlie, is that okay?
Yes.
Yep.
For clarification, the scoping committee members will be telling, well, Moffitt Nichols will be presenting what they want to do. And the scoping committee members will say, if you want to do this, you have to do this, this, and this.
Right,
That's the way it works.
right, or they'll say that that's not possible,
Right.
redo or
Right.
resubmit or something like that. But it's all about cans or cannots,
Right.
not ethically should or should not.
So do we agree as a council that Moffett will speak on behalf of the town council, the questions we give him?
I'm fine with that.
I'm
That's
good.
fine.
Have a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Lisa, is that okay? Did I do it right? All right, second thing, citizen parking on the island, Councilman Harris
That's been
No, it
decided to
was-
push that off.
Yeah, that's been taken off. That was taken off.
I know. All right, number 3, workshop agenda discussion, Councilman Sharado.
Yeah, I have a problem with our workshops right now, because they're nothing more than formatted as like council meetings. There's been discussions whether we can vote or not vote. We went through this years ago when we had a council meeting and a workshop, and the workshops started off as workshops, and then they evolved into council meetings. Decisions were made. The residents were upset because decisions were being made at workshops and not at council meetings. So what we did was we said no more workshops. We created 2 council meetings, and they were called council meetings, and we had an agenda, pledge allegiance, and all the things that go with it. And I went to the last workshop, which was like a council meeting. Now, either we're going to have workshops or council meetings. I look at a workshop as like what John brought up today, discussion about these kinds of things and gathering a consensus, or studying whether or not we should have beach parking and develop procedures for that, or whether we should restore the ERC and develop procedures for that, and then get a consensus and then bring it forth to this, the taxpayers. Mark, you brought up a good idea, and plus, no one likes 3-hour council meetings. And since we only have one council meeting, there's a lot of things that go on to a council meeting because we only have one, and that's the only time we can really should vote. And there's been some disagreement about that too. I would like to see, instead of trying to reinvent the wheel, is to have 2 council meetings in a quarterly workshop. I think you brought that up, Mark, so that we can see what we want to do, plan ahead, discuss those issues at workshops, and then do the procedural approvals and so forth at council meetings. I don't know why that's so difficult, but I know one thing. We're going to head into the same trap that we did before, which is the reason why we decided to have 2 council meetings a month.
Well, let's make a motion that we do a 1 quarter discussion, of course, but have a meeting once a quarter before the quarter starts with a workshop. And we have regular 2 town hall council meetings a month.
Well, I think the problem was, as I recall, and I wasn't on the council at the time, was that you'd have a workshop and everything would be discussed, and then the idea was to have all that discussion and then act on it at a council meeting. And what happened was the same arguments were replayed over and over at the council meeting. That's why they took so long.
Well, hopefully we have better workshops, Charlie. I agree with you. I mean, that was a problem, so let's try to make it so it's not a problem. Say, for example, at the end of April, we have a workshop for the next quarter. And those things would be put on the agenda that we want to discuss. We have the workshop at the end of the, before the next quarter starts. John?
Well, I think one of the reasons that the second meeting tends to evolve into decisions, that we've had trouble when we were doing workshops of actually figuring out how to sit down and discuss things in an effective way for a workshop. And that's one aspect of it, and that requires whoever's coming in with the idea to be pretty well prepared to discuss the topic, to lead the discussion, to go through the pros and cons and cover all of that. And that takes a while to do. The other point that comes up is when we were doing these, trying to do just workshops, things would come up that we just need to act on. You know, business that needed to be taken care of. And so we kind of combined both.
That would be resolved by having 2 council
Well,
meetings.
we think of that. So now we're just going to add another meeting to the project. If we do one at the end of April, that means that we will have 4 sort of workshop type meetings.
That's too much, a lot of meetings, John.
In the course of the meeting. I mean, that's, I think we're starting to get to the realm of unreasonable. Because it's also an impact on the staff when we do that, when we do these things.
I would like to explain the way I see workshops. I see workshops the way they were done prior to 2009. When Cherry Cheek was mayor, was when a lot of effective workshops were held. And we only had 1 council meeting then, a month. But when we ran into snags in a meeting where we couldn't agree or we needed to do more research, Cherry Cheek would call a workshop meeting, and we would all go to that workshop meeting. It would be open to the public. We held it in the conference room. The people could come and participate. No action was taken. We could get more input back from the public on how they felt about what we were discussing, and it worked very well.
And if I
And they weren't planned. They happened when it became necessary to have a workshop.
And if I recall, they were very informal.
Very informal,
Very
yes.
informal.
And the public attended them.
And the public attended, and it was very casual, very informal, and the public would ask questions, and they were invited to ask questions and participate.
And I think that's what we should do now is when we, for instance, John, this thing that you were talking about, climate control and all of that, I can see that taking a whole workshop and let the public participate in it.
I've got no problem
mean,
with doing
it's
that.
a way for us-
I'm just kind of concerned with the proliferation of meetings.
It's a way for us to exchange ideas
Yeah.
and not be breaking open meeting laws. And as it is now, we
I mean, this
We
year.
rarely, someone comes in prepared with a plan, and we don't get full feedback from other members on the council. It's kind of almost already decided before we get in here.
Yeah.
And I would really like to hear feedback from the other council members.
Well, I would like more detailed discussion. I like the idea of the public input. What about sort of a compromise that at the second meeting of the month, we dedicate 1 hour of it to be workshop topics or topic, and then have a second hour to be, if there's council meeting activities that need to be done.
Lisa, can we make half a meeting action and one half workshop?
Yeah,
That's fine, that's a good compromise.
I'll buy that. I have no difficulty with
Do we
that.
have to have a motion on that, Lisa?
No, it's just the way we will schedule the meetings whenever you want to, the topics you want to put on there, we'll just put under, like, instead of doing like a presentation, we'll just call it workshop, and then there'll be old business and new business.
Okay.
Can we allow the public a little better input than 3 minutes on public?
Well, I think if the concept that I'm hearing you about the workshop is we're talking about it, and when I say something like, what are the infrastructure areas that may be something we can address over the next, looking at the next 10 years or so, we have an expert in the audience and says, oh, I got one.
Absolutely.
And that would be the monitoring. I mean, it has to be run where I guess either the person handling the topic or the mayor pro tem, is the facilitator for that topic and runs it through over a period of time.
That's right.
I mean,
Or you have public comments in the workshop at the end. And also, you have three, public comments in this not the closed session, but the action section.
Well, the idea would be to run the action section pretty much like, you've got your comments in that, but in a workshop, part of the viability of having the workshop is being able to expand beyond the brain power of the 5 members of the council. And so that
Exactly.
way you have to have a facilitator that
I think that's right.
that handles the discussion going back and
I
forth.
think we'd handle that.
Yeah,
Okay.
Yeah,
I think it's worth a try.
I mean, issues that require a vote, we can make that part of the council meeting. Issues that require study, we keep that part of the workshop.
Yeah, and I would sort of be willing, if we're looking into June for the climate control, is to put that topic on for this first split meeting
Correct.
to see if we work out the kinks.
Sounds
I mean,
good.
it's not going to be
That's
a
fine.
perfect
All right, Lisa,
solution,
that
but
would be
we'll see
our
what
first,
happens.
town council meeting, will be 19th, June 19th, all right? All right. There-
I think we're at disposition
Deposition
of
of-
directors. This is for the 14th at, well, I don't know what it is, the 19th, I'm
19th.
sorry.
19th.
I would like to put on Jan's citizen parking because we're gonna need to, you may put that at the council section because we may need a vote on that, discussion and a vote.
I would really like to hear a lot of discussion on that before we take action.
Well, if we, the part of the problem, Jan, is on the 19th, if we have to take action, it's gonna have to be approved at the May meeting.
So we'll have discussion on the 19th.
Okay, right.
We can have discussion on the 19th, but then it has
I
to be.
can see that being a workshop type of
Yeah,
discussion.
no, fine,
Okay.
fine.
Anything else?
Restoring the ERC,
We already have that on the schedule.
Two.
It's for May.
To,
It's sometime in May.
when is
May.
it?
We come,
May 7th.
the idea was May 7th, we come back with, and Jan and I work out language, we come back and give it to the council.
Right, but
And then the following meeting after that, we
Right, but May
discuss
7th
it in detail.
Right, but May 7th's a council meeting. Does that need discussion at a workshop?
Well,
Well, we have
the
discussion.
idea was we give you the paper to review and look at,
Okay,
so that at the workshop, at the second meeting in May, we come back and
Okay.
discuss it,
Right.
workshop like.
Okay.
all right.
Anything else?
The other thing, we may need to put on May 7th, our feedback, to what we heard regarding the scoping meeting.
Yeah, we put that on the agenda.
For May 7th, because the people would, I'm sure the people would be very interested in that. That's a major, major, major project.
Okay. Anything else?
I don't have anything else, Mark.
Charlie, John, Dan?
No.
Public comment?
Well, just as you're looking at that, we have on there, the ordinance 9301, amendment of the premises to be kept clean.
Oh, yes.
Ron LeBruno, Dustin Hiram, and myself are meeting on April 4th to go over that, so that hopefully at the following meeting, we'll be able to tell you something about where we are
Okay.
and what we think should be happening.
So just put it down for an update on the 19th.
Update.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
You've also got a number 5 under new business for the RFP. Before jumping to public comments.
I thought I made that motion, put that on already.
You did, but you jumped to public comments. We need to do that before you jump.
Okay. So I'd have to make a motion to put that in,
You have to authorize us to do, I mean,
and I have to
That's
put a
to
motion to do that, right? To
Yeah.
advertise that. So we added to the agenda. The agenda is the motion to announce, to also authorize staff to develop advertisement on a RFP for consulting services for the town administration search. And all in favor? Or motion? All in favor? Aye.
Yeah. This, just to be clear, this was to RFPs to hire a consultant.
Consulting.
Yeah, hard to-
Okay.
do y'all want us to bring the RFP back to you the next meeting for your review? Or do you just want to go ahead and let us throw it out? Okay.
Yeah.
Also, we need a job description. If you can take out the old job description first, that would be helpful.
Okay. Now we go to public comments.
If you want.
Public comments?
I wasn't going to say anything. It's Jean Hunt again from 105 Forest Walk. And I was just looking at the fire department issue. Has every one of these towns got 2 firehouses? Or are they all dealing with one firehouse? Maybe that was our problem by building a second firehouse. I only got just involved recently in listening to council meetings. But anyway, I mean, if this information is accurate, it appears we're overstaffed and et cetera, and if every other town has only one firehouse, probably the issue is the second firehouse, which is a moot discussion. We have it, we got to deal with it. Okay? That's one thing. The other thing was the bicycle path along Sunset Boulevard. I belong to a bicycle group here at Sunset, and we bicycled every Saturday morning, and we were so excited when we heard we were going to get a bicycle path. And I saw the flags going up along 15 or 20 feet off the road, and I thought, oh, great. It's going to be the same like it is out of Sea Trail down into town. And then I see them paving, and it appears it's going to be incorporated right with the pavement where the cars are. Just maybe a 3 or 4 foot section where bicycles will be marked for bicycles.
Are you talking about 179?
Yes.
Sunset Boulevard.
Yeah, yeah.
Wherever, right out there.
It's important we have bicycle routes, safe bicycle routes. I've done a lot of bicycling up in the Northeast on Long Island, up to, from Long Island to Boston, from Long Island up north of Schenectady. It's dangerous on the road. And I would thought we were going to get our bicycle path off the road, and obviously we're not. So I'm a little disappointed in that. But I'm happy we're getting a bicycle path. Don't get me wrong. Okay?
Should be a lot safer.
Yeah, yeah. It'll be safer, but not as safe as I thought it was going to be. Anyway, I don't want to take up all your time, but that's it for now, right now.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Anybody else? I'd like to put a motion to adjourn this meeting. All in favor?
I want to discuss it.